brother.
Okay. We had one. I thought I had it here, but I remember the question. The question was when it says that a man could be justified by his wife.
Well, I don't know what that means. So he
Uh,
should give me the context. Oh,
the
yeah. 1 Corinthians 7:12-16. He was referring to 1 Corinthians 7:12-16. He was looking at verse 14.
yeah.
Okay, now I understand what he means. Let's reread that again. Let's see if that's what Paul said. 1 Corinthians 7:12-16. He mentioned verse 14.
Okay. Here it
God
is.
bless you, brother.
I got the full question here. It says, "Will you explain the meaning of 1 Corinthians 7:14, where the unbelieving husband is made holy because of
Okay,
his wife?"
let's reread it. Let's see if you read it correctly. Open it up, 1 Corinthians 7:12-16. He said that the husband will be made holy. Well, let's reread it to see carefully if that's what it says. Let's see. 1 Corinthians 7:12-16.
Okay.
And read it for us.
Okay. It's 1 Corinthians 7. First
Yep.
Corinthians 7.
Read 12-16.
Oh,
Well, sucks being you, useless eater, because you're not white, so you're no salvation for you. You're going to hell. It's not even a question worth answering. Go ahead.
but to the rest speak I, not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. And the woman which hath a husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife,
Okay,
and,
continue reading so we can see what that means. Let's see if that's what it means. Keep reading all the way 16.
and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now are they holy. But if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God hath called us to peace. For what knowest thou, O wife, whether thou shalt save thy husband? Or how knowest thou, O husband, whether or not thou shalt save thy wife?
Oh,
Wow.
man, not husband, you little sinner. Don't misread.
Oh, well, you see, I'm in California, and husband doesn't necessarily mean man here, but
Okay, see, you got it. You're being technical. Okay, so number one, who was the brother or sister asked the question?
uh, Mitchell.
Okay, Mitchell. Number one, the husband being made holy doesn't mean he's saved. How do we know? Because in verse 16, keep the verses up so they can see it. In verse 16, it says, how do you know, wife, that if you stay with your husband, he may end up getting saved? Or how do you know, oh man, that if you stay with your wife, she may end up getting saved? Well, if they're already saved because they're married, that statement doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So what does he mean? See, here's where it gets tricky because the verb that we render as holy, both in Hebrew and Greek, means to be set apart, setting apart. That's why this translation says sanctified. Sanctified means set apart. So, in what way is the husband, who's an unbeliever, set apart by his wife? Or in what way is the wife, who's an unbeliever, set apart by her husband? What Paul is saying is, due to your faith, you make the marriage acceptable to God and you bring your spouse under God's blessing and influence because they're living in a Christian environment, in a Christian household where they're under the blessings of God, the spiritual graces of God, and a Christian influence. And through that, the children you have are considered holy because of your faith. And you don't know that because your spouse is being exposed to the graces of God and the blessings of God that you receive, which pour out into your family. Because if I'm blessed, my family is blessed, right? That will move your spouse to see the reality of your faith and how real your God is. And that will move that person to then want to give his or her life to God. That's what it means.
That's awesome. And you know that I guess I want, even though I think you answered it already, but I'll go ahead and ask it just because when I read it, every time I read it, it kind of just gives me a little bit of a shock, and that is, and now your children are holy.
Exactly. In other words, your faith purifies the marriage and makes it a marriage acceptable to God. So your children are pure in the sight of God up until they reach the age of accountability where they have to then make the faith their own. You with me there?
Yep.
The faith of the believing spouse makes the marriage acceptable to God. And every member of the household come under God's graces, blessings, and influence. So the children are not considered profane, but are considered pure because the faith of the spouse results in the purity of the children. And doesn't mean the husband is saved if he's an unbeliever, or the wife. It means they too are now set apart. So they too become recipients of the graces and the blessings that God is conferring for the sake of the believing spouse. And through that, that may move the spouse to then want to give their life to God when they see the reality of the God of their spouse,
Wow.
in contrast to the non-reality of their gods and goddesses.
Mhm. You know, this also makes me think of, like it says about Joseph, that Joseph blessed God blessed the whole household.
Genesis 39 verses 1 to 6, exactly.
Yeah, but
The
it shows
entire house was blessed because of Joseph.
even unrelated people were
Yep.
blessed because of Joseph.
Yes, because of his presence there. He brought God's blessings into that house.
You know, that should encourage all Christians that you may not see, the effect on other people of your presence. And it's not that you're so special or you're so anything, but it's because of God's blessing on your life
100%.
that people are being blessed and your family is being drawn closer to God.
Because of your influence, because of your godliness, because of your prayers, because of your fasting, because of your obedience, because of your Bible study.
Yes.
Right?
That's a wonderful, wonderful.
So you're exposing your household to a Christian influence, a Christian environment where the Bible is being read, where prayers to the triune God are being offered, where songs to God are being heard. Of course, that's going to affect them
and seeing the power of God,
in your life. Yes?
the miracles of God, they can't deny it when they actually see that, your God is real, and I mean, I've seen it so many times with my family members that, some of them aren't Christian or, but when they saw the power of God, they saw God do stuff, it was real, man. And God likes to do that. He likes to show his glory, so.
Yeah. And you gave an excellent example. Joseph was living in the house of Potiphar.
Mhm.
Genesis 39, verse 1 to 6. And it says, Potiphar's house, even his business, became blessed because of Joseph.
Yes.